Good morning, good afternoon, wherever it is you may be listening from, and welcome to episode 6 of Dugout Talk and our first episode of our 30 teams breakdown leading up to spring training. My name is Stephen Gossman,
Hey guys, I'm Cameron Lingle.
and welcome back. Hope you had a great weekend. We just saw some good football games take place. Congratulations to the Chiefs and the Buccaneers on making the Super Bowl. Pretty exciting games overall. Not exactly what we expected, but I think it's safe to say we can no longer bet against Tom Brady.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and start off with our days in history. I'll go ahead and take the lead on this since mine's pretty quick. But in 2015, 6 years ago today, Rob Manfred became the commissioner of Major League Baseball, replacing Bud Selig, who had been commissioner for 20 years.
Wow. Crazy. Crazy. It's been 6 years and it's only been 6 years at the same time.
Exactly. It's it doesn't feel like it, but at the same time, it's like only.
Yeah. Well, my day in history today, 13 years ago, in the crisp year of 2008, the Minnesota Twins, announced deals for both Justin Morneau and Michael Kadire. At the same time, they had just lost Torrey Hunter and Carlos Silva to free agency. The fans were a little upset. They thought maybe the team's trying to rebuild. There were rumors that Yohan Santana might get traded soon. Um, but the Twins announced a couple deals for some guys who had been lifers as Twins up to that point. Justin Morneau got the largest contract extension, not only contract extension, but the largest contract in team history. He got 6 years and 80 million. So to think that even just looking back from now, a guy like Justin Morneau would have got probably six and like 250 in today's money. Michael Kadire, the longtime Twins outfielder, he got a 3-year, $24 million contract extension to keep both players in Minnesota for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, that's really cool for the Twins,
Hmm.
and it's kind of unfortunate though that the core that they had never actually won a
Yeah.
World Series, especially because the Central was really uncompetitive when they were um, when they were in their prime. It felt like so.
Sorry, Twins fans.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry about that as well. But what's funny too is actually both guys after they hit free agency, they went to Colorado.
Hmm.
Ironically enough, which is kind of interesting to look at that. Yeah, so that's our day in history for January 25th. And now we're going to move on to the primary topic of the show, which is our first breakdown of our 30 teams. And we are going to be starting off with the American League East this week, moving from bottom to top based on division standings from last year. And today, now, when I was doing research, I'm really glad I looked at the standings on Saturday
Yeah.
night because had I not, we wouldn't have done this correctly. I was very sure that the Baltimore Orioles got last place in the East last year. And in my defense, the Orioles have stunk the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, yeah, they got last again. But then something went off in my brain Saturday night to say, I need to look at that, make sure I'm actually getting this right because I was taking notes. And sure enough, it was actually the Boston Red Sox who got last place in the division last year by a game, um, which
You
is
hate to
kind
see
of,
it.
yeah, it was kind of surprising. I texted you, I was kind of freaking out, like, shoot,
Yeah.
we got to do Boston today.
I know. I was all set. Like in my mind, I'm like, all right, yeah, we'll talk about the Orioles. It'll be pretty laid back. I don't know if the Orioles have even signed anybody outside of minor league deals. So I'm like, it'll be largely the same team they had, maybe an addition or two, kind of laid back. And then I'm like, oh, we're actually doing the Red Sox.
Yeah. So lo and behold, today we're going to be breaking down the Boston Red Sox. So if you're a Red Sox fan or you know any Red Sox fans, be sure to share this podcast with them. And we would love to get that support train going. Be sure to share these links with people you know who also love the game of baseball. Share this with your friends, family, the cashier, your favorite coffee shop, whoever you can think of. If you're listening to this, we would love to get your guys' support and try to make this more of a full-time thing that we can potentially do in the future.
Absolutely.
Um, so with that said, let's begin. So the Red Sox last year finished with a 24-36 record in 60 games. Ron Renicky, who was the bench coach the last 2 years, took over as the manager after the firing of Alex Cora, and Renicky was axed shortly after the season ended. But going into 2021, Alex Cora was fired because he was suspended for his involvement between the Astros 2017 cheating scandal, and also the Red Sox were found to be using the replay room illegally during their 2018 championship run. And Cora was suspended for the full 2020 season as a result. The Red Sox fired him, but they quickly rehired him once his suspension was lifted, and he is back with the team. In 2018, he guided the team to the World Series championship, as well as an MLB best 108 wins that year. 2019, they missed the playoffs entirely, finished third in the AL East with 85 wins. He comes into 2021 with a 193 and 131 managerial record.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's it's kind of scummy to just kind of under the radar pick the guy up that just got suspended for a whole year for cheating twice. But they like what they have in Alex Cora. Outside of that, he's still a great manager. Probably still controls whatever veterans are left in that clubhouse. He still has their respect. So I have no doubt that he'll be able to help turn this team around. But I mean, looking at the moves they've made, I don't see 2021 being much better than 2020 or 2019.
Yeah, and considering how the rest of the division is laying out right now,
Hmm.
um, this team, looking at this team on paper, they look like they're in they're in limbo mode of they are not trying to rebuild,
Yeah.
but it's very clear they need to restructure and retool. And the good news for them is they have quite a few top prospects who are knocking on the door to
Hmm.
make the team soon. So this could 2021 feels like an in-between year for them where they're going to put a competitive team on the field at least, but the results are going to determine what the team does
Hmm.
throughout the year. And it's not so much a bad thing, but I think the Red Sox have to realize that between the Yankees, the Rays, and the Blue Jays, their chances of competing in the division this year are very slim. And all the cards on the table have to be played correctly if they're going to find any success this year. But they do have a bright future, I think. And I believe sooner or later, probably sooner, they're going to be back to competing. And hopefully the Yankees Red Sox rivalry is great to watch again. Because right now it's kind of mediocre. It's not a fun rivalry to watch when one of the two teams isn't that great.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
but let's just kind of do a quick breakdown of some of the losses that they had before we go into the acquisitions. So from the team last year, second baseman Jose Peraza, first baseman Mitch Moreland, and outfielder Kevin Pillar are the most notable names that are not. And Jackie Bradley Jr.
Yeah.
Are either not returning to the team or have not been signed by the team yet. Um, Bradley has been rumored to the Red Sox in free agent talks, but as far as whether they're going to bring him in or not is still up in the air. I think it's safe to assume Mitch Moreland's not going to be returning. Kevin Pillar's probably not going to be returning. Jose Peraza, most likely not. So they did lose a few guys in free agency. Not star players really. I guess Bradley Jr. is really the most star-studded guy that they've
Yeah.
lost. But again, they could bring him back. It's not so much nailed in stone or set in
Mm-mm.
stone that he's not returning to the team. But then looking at some of the acquisitions, they were pretty busy over the weekend. They upgraded at second base to sign Kike Hernandez from the Dodgers, who was on
Yep.
that World Series team this year. He signed a 2-year deal with the club. They They boosted the rotation with Garrett Richards, who was with the Padres the last 2 years. They signed him to a 1 year, $10 million deal. And then they also have added Matt Andriese, who is like a starter reliever, as well as Hunter Renfroe, who was on the Tampa Bay Rays last year, to be in their outfield. Kind of looking at these acquisitions, how do you feel about these going into 2021?
Um, looking at each one individually, they're all okay deals. Like they're all decent deals. None of them really have the potential to backfire in their face. Being that Richards, Andrews, and Renfro are all 1 year deals, and Kike's is a 2 year deal. None of them plan to blow up in their face. Just a couple decent moves. Richards probably figures to be in that opening day rotation, um, while Matt Andrews probably figures to be, I'd say, long relief, potentially a starter if they don't want to go that route with Nick Pivetta, who they got from the Phillies last year. Uh, Andrews could always slide in there, fill out a fifth spot, or like I said, he could just hang out in the bullpen, be a long relief, maybe just a veteran presence. I know their bullpen is fairly young. Um, so looking at Kike, I think he's going to be a nice addition. He can play a multitude of positions as he has in his career with the Dodgers. Um, Second base is where Fangraphs has him playing every day at. I'm sure that he'll probably spell a couple other guys at some other positions as the season progresses. But like I said, I don't think any of these are bad deals. I think they're all nice. They're nice complementary deals. But for the Red Sox, they don't have the guy for them to be complementary deals for. Like usually you have one big signing, then you have a couple complementary signings to add on. Um, that's kind of like going back to what you had said earlier about them not trying to compete, but at the same time not trying to rebuild. They're just kind of middling themselves out.
Yeah, they're putting a team on the field that they can at least say we have a team going
Yeah,
into 2021. We're not throwing anything under the table. We're not throwing the towel in early. I mean, I'm sure there's belief in the front office and within the team that they can compete, which I mean, you'd hope that that's the case, that the front office actually believes that this team can to some degree compete this year. But at
yeah,
the same time, like I said, it's they're not really all that much in the mix because the AL East is just getting really competitive
yeah.
between three teams for sure. Um, and also a note on Kike Hernandez, he is a utility player, which is nice for the Red Sox because he probably will, even though he's listed as the second baseman right now,
Hmm.
he probably will play other positions
Yeah,
throughout the year. But Kike is also not necessarily a prime bat that he's proven the more he plays, he tends to
yeah,
regress
yep,
as the season goes on. He's never really been a high batting average type of guy.
hmm,
He's got a good glove,
yep,
but even with the Dodgers, he made a handful of starts, but they used him off the bench quite a bit as well,
hmm,
um, just kind of as a utility role, bench player, starter in that way. So I'm not really sure if Kike improves the offense necessarily.
yeah,
Because like I said, I think the more he starts, the more the team is going to see that unless if he just has a resurgence and finds himself in Boston, I don't think he's going to really put that offense over the top necessarily. So I think they're just kind of more or less a well-rounded team, but
hmm,
um, and I think Hernandez is he's kind of like insurance for some of their top prospects as
yeah,
they develop and continue to improve. Because looking at the depth chart, they have Michael Chavis, and
hmm,
Chavis right now he's listed as the first baseman. But he can play outfield and he can play second. He can play a little third. And I think just looking at who is in the system for the Red Sox, Chavis is probably going to take over second base. And to me, Hernandez seems almost like insurance so that then Chavis can be the everyday second baseman in the future. And
Mm,
also to point out, Dustin Pedroia,
yeah,
he's still listed as their second baseman, but he hasn't played a game since 2018.
yeah,
And it's really just a matter of when is he going to announce his retirement, because
yeah.
Pedroia hasn't had a healthy season since 2016.
Jeez.
Um, and it's really sad because Pedroia is well loved in Boston. He's been there his whole career since
Yeah,
2007.
yeah,
But it's also a matter of, it's kind of like a David Wright situation with the
yeah.
Mets where he just can't stay healthy. And it's really unclear if he's even going to be ready for opening day. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of what his role on the team is going to be. So Kike is a good second base option for them in this case as well because of the uncertainty surrounding Pedroia. But again, I don't think this really improves the offense necessarily, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. No, he has a little bit of pop, so he'll especially with regardless of how tall the monster is, it is relatively close. I think he has the ability to pop maybe 20 home runs in a full season if he does play. I could see close to 20, maybe 25 at most. But yeah, if he's going to be an everyday player, I don't see the average being much higher than 230, 240, 250 at the best.
Kike did hit 21 homers in
Mm-hmm.
2018, so the pop
Yeah.
is there for sure. He's got 71 in his career. Um, and the Red Sox have a pretty powerful lineup when you just look on
Yeah.
paper. They still have JD Martinez. I know
Yeah.
Martinez had a considerable down year last year where he only hit 213, but he still has the power. Hunter Renfro is, I'm
Yeah.
sure, going to blast some homers in that ballpark. He's going to make the Green Monster at Fenway look like a short porch.
Yeah.
They also have Christian Vasquez for being a catcher. He's got decent average
Mm-hmm.
and can also hit the ball out of the park. Rafael Devers,
Yeah.
he's got the ability to hit 30 bombs. Even Andrew Benintendi,
Yeah.
he's capable of poking one out every now and again. And in a full season, he can probably hit about 20 homers if
Yeah.
given the chance. And then there's Xander Bogaerts as well,
Yeah.
who has also put up 30 homer seasons in his career. So they have a pretty, as far as power goes, they've got a pretty steady lineup in that way. Batting average wise, I think this team leans a little more towards hit and miss.
Yeah.
They're probably going to hit about 260 as a team, I would say. Um, but again, this isn't so terrible an offense on paper when you look at it that you can't immediately write the Red Sox out. And if the division wasn't as competitive as it is going into the season, you might even argue that Boston could compete for a wild card, if not the division. Um, but kind of looking into that too, they have some guys in Benintendi, Bogarts, Renfro, who's on that 1 year deal, potentially Hernandez, maybe even JD Martinez, where some of these guys could get moved as the season goes on, depending on how things go for them. I think in the pitching rotation, they're probably not going to make so many moves
Mm-mm.
over the course of the year. But I would say in the lineup, most definitely they could make some moves because most of some of the rising stars that they have in their farm system are bats. For example, Jeter Downs, he's projected to make the big league team at some point this year.
Mm-hmm.
Bobby Dahlbeck, who had a brief stint last season, is probably going to be in the mix. Um, it's kind of like, and there's been rumors surround Benintendi for sure. We thought last week he might get traded,
Yeah.
um, which, considering it didn't happen, I would think that he's probably going to be on the team on opening day.
Mm-hmm.
And the Red Sox will try to use him as trade bait if things start to go south for them. And I think the same can be
Yep.
said for Bogarts. Um, but just kind of looking at what this lineup is going to look like, what are your thoughts on? First of all, what are your thoughts on batting order? And then second, what are some of your thoughts on how these guys are probably going to do as the year goes on?
Yeah. Looking at their batting average, I don't know what kind of analytics they're going to play into, so I kind of assembled like a more traditional batting order. I've got Alex Verdugo leading off, playing center field. I know he's done some leading off in the past in Boston, so I expect that to continue. I have Xander Bogaerts hitting second, kind of the best, if not the best, the second best all around hitter. I have him batting second. I have the guy who either is the best, the second best hitter on that team right now, Rafi Devers. He's batting third, manning third base. I've got JD Martinez as the everyday DH still. I have Christian Vasquez hitting fifth, playing catcher. I have Andrew Benintendi playing left field, hitting sixth. I have Hunter Renfroe batting seventh, playing right field. I've got Bobby Dahlbeck as the opening day catcher. I think he's going to surprise a couple people and potentially sweep that job. I have him batting eighth, playing first base, and then I do have Kike Hernandez, or maybe Christian Arroyo if he does well. I know they picked him up off waivers from Cleveland last year. There's also the potential for um, there's also potential for, as you said, a couple other guys who could play second base. Um, Even if they do find a way to acquire another guy, or Jeter Downs maybe comes up. Uh, Second base is probably the most open position for guys, but I think Kike, based on the fact that they gave him a 2-year deal, will probably open as the second baseman unless something happens.
I agree with that. I think one guy who I said earlier, Michael Chavis, he's another
Yeah.
guy to look out for too. Um, I agree with you on Dahlbeck though, and I was looking at Dahlbeck's minor league splits, and he's only a 261 hitter in the minors. So I was kind of curious why the team has been so high on him when they know, based on his minor league stats, he's not. He's, I guess, consistent is an okay word to use throughout his as a hitter, but he also only has a handful of games in AAA. So I was a little curious why they've been rushing Dahlbeck, but after seeing what he did last year in a very short sample of 22 games, he hit 8 homers and hit 263, which isn't bad,
Mm-mm.
especially because the miners didn't have a season last year. So I think Dahlbeck has proven that he belongs on the team, and there's no doubt in my mind he's going to compete for a roster spot. As far as maybe an opening day start, I don't know. I could maybe see it, him being an opening day guy. If it is, he's going to play first base.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but again, you gotta think about Michael Chavis as well,
Yes.
because Chavis is also part of the future there, and that's why I was saying that he'll probably be the second baseman, especially if the team is as high on Dahlbeck as it appears that they are.
Yeah.
Chavis will probably be the second baseman, maybe an outfielder at some point. Um, but that is interesting. I think Dahlbeck could be a sneaky opening day first baseman for them.
Yeah. Very well could.
Uh, and Arroyo, I think, could also be a sneaky second day pick for them, or a second base pick for them. If anything, he'll at least be a bench player.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I think Alex Verdugo could even be on the bench. I think, yes, it just depends on who the opening day pitcher is,
Yep.
for the Red Sox, and I got to look and see who their opponent is. But Verdugo, I imagine, is going to be part of that. He's going to be a majority everyday player, but him being a left-handed bat, I imagine he's going to get some days off when there's lefties
Mm-hmm.
on the mound, unless if
Yep.
he proves that he can actually hit left-handed pitching.
Yeah.
And Boston's opening day opponent for 2021 is the Orioles at
I thought
Fenway.
so.
So, and I'm not exactly sure what the Orioles rotation looks like, but
Yeah. I don't know either.
Verdugo probably is going to be I think there's a good chance he'll be in the opening day lineup. Um, Now, as far as pitching goes, there is a little limbo, I would say, with what the rotation is going to look like, because their ace pitcher and Chris Sale is still
Mm-hmm.
recovering from Tommy John surgery, and their other southpaw, Eduardo Rodriguez, he didn't pitch last year, and he didn't pitch last year because of a heart condition that he got diagnosed with just as the season was getting going, called myocarditis, which is inflammation of the heart muscle. And another note, Rodriguez was diagnosed with COVID during the summer camp,
Mm.
and apparently he had some complications with it, and myocarditis might have been part of the reason for some of those complications because he wasn't able to pitch last year because of it. I did see as of November he was getting back into like a throwing program, and he hadn't had any setbacks, and I haven't heard any news since then. So maybe he is going to come. Maybe he is going to come back and he'll be ready for opening day. If that's the case, I would think he's probably slated as the opening day guy,
Yeah, yeah, it'll either be him or Evaldi,
or maybe Martin Perez.
maybe. Yeah, I see the rotation in any way, shape, or form. You know, you can mix and match how you please. But I've got Nathan Eovaldi, I've got Eduardo Rodriguez, I've got Garrett Richards, Martin Perez, and Nick Pivetta as my opening day five. Um, Obviously, you'll get Sale back at some point. You've got Matt Andrees that could slide in and pitch in the rotation at any point in time and be relatively competitive. So they've got a few options for their rotation.
And they have some young guys who can
Hmm.
also come into the mix. They're one of their top pitching prospects in Tanner Houck. Tanner
Yeah.
Houck is the team's number 10 prospect. He, in a very small sample size of games last year, he started in 3 games and recorded a 0.53 ERA.
Wow.
And Hauk has been a rising star for them. He since 2017, he's been rising up in the minors. He's consistently been in 2 levels of minor leagues over his 4 seasons. So Hauk is a guy to look out for as well. He's probably going to be competing for a roster spot as well this season. And the nice thing with Hauk is he's only 22, so
Hmm.
he's got a lot of time to still develop. And Fangraphs doesn't necessarily project him being a huge contributor.
Hmm.
According to their site, they think he's going to probably have a 5.2 ERA, which would be a traditional first full season for him. So, and he may not be necessarily in their cards right now as in the opening day rotation, but he's a guy to look out for as the season goes on. And I would think he's part of the future for them as well, where down the line he's going to get more reps um, as a starter for them as they go into this retooling stage and kind of reaffirming themselves as a competitive team. Hauk is, I imagine, going to be a major part of that. And they also have Chris Mazza, who Mazza got a little bit of time with the team last year. He's not one of their top prospects, but he got a little bit of time with the team last year. They got Connor Siebold, who can do some pitching for them as well. They also have Colton Brewer, and
Oh,
Colton
okay.
Brewer
Yeah.
split a little time between the rotation and the starting staff last year. He appeared in 13 games and made 4 starts. So they have a pretty decent amount of options on the pitching side of things. And you also included Matt Andrees in that,
Hmm.
who he can do some long relief. He can probably be an emergency starter if they need it. Um, so the Red Sox seem pretty set for the most part in the pitching rotation. It'll be nice when they get Chris Sale back. Hopefully they get Chris Sale back when they say they're going to get him back.
Yeah.
My projected rotation, I also have Uvalde as their number 1 guy. Uh,
Okay.
I got Rodriguez as their 2, Perez as their 3, Richards as their 4, and then it's a little bit of a toss up for me as
Yeah.
far as who the number 5 is going to be, but I got to lean towards Pavetta at this point as well. But I could easily see them kind of mixing it around because Pavetta can also be a bullpen piece for them.
Oh yeah. And a nice bullpen piece too.
And speaking of the bullpen, um, They and with the bullpen, they've got a lot of guys as well that are going to probably play into the mix. Matt Barnes is right now slated as the closer, which I think is safe to assume that he's got
Yeah.
the closer's job is his to lose
Yeah.
at this point. Other than that, it's a pretty young bullpen slot that they've got. Ryan Brazier is expected to be in the mix. Phillips Valdez is probably going to be in as well. Josh Taylor, Austin Bryce, Marcus Walden, Garrett Whitlock is another arm to keep an eye out for. Whitlock is, let's see, he's the number 26 prospect.
Yeah. If I Garrett Whitlock spent a few years in the Yankees farm system. I believe they just drafted him in December in the Rule 5 draft. He was a guy that I was looking forward to see. I thought that he was probably going to play into the Yankees bullpen, maybe potentially at some point. But I think he's gonna be a great addition for the Red Sox. I've been high on him for quite a while now.
And kind of looking at the inside numbers for the Red Sox bullpen, they don't really have any stars in that bullpen. Barnes is considerably the best reliever that they have, and Andres he can be dominant at times, but he can be really tough to watch at times too.
Yeah.
He's always been kind of up and down. Fangraphs has the bullpen projected to record a 4.43 ERA on the season. The rotations are expected to have a 4.57 ERA. So this is kind of, I don't know, about as average as you can get
Yeah.
with the team. The nice thing, though, is the Red Sox, I do believe, have a bright future ahead of them with,
Hmm.
Jeter Downs is expected to be up later this year. And then they've got a couple other prospects that are expected to play in the mix as well. Duran and Ward. Duran is the number 8 prospect. Ward is the number 9, and Ward is right now in triple, or is in single A. None of these guys have made it to the triple A level yet,
Yeah.
um, but they probably will. They probably will get the spring training invites. We'd imagine.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, Jeter Downs, he's 22 years old. Thad Ward, he's 24. Jaron Duran, he's 24, and then they also have Tristan Cassis, who's a first baseman, as their number 2 prospect. He might also play a part. They're not expecting him up until 2022, but he could also play a part for them
Yeah.
uh, in the future. And if he has a good enough minor league season, maybe a September call up could be in the mix for him as well. They also have Brian Mata. I'm looking at the top prospects right now, and Brian Mata got a little bit of time on the big league club last year. He's
Hmm.
only 21. But he's probably going to play into the mix for this team as well.
Yeah. Yeah. They like you just mentioned, they've got a lot of very young bullpen pieces. Um, I think their bullpen's probably the most open among any of their areas. I think there's going to be a lot of guys who are in the minor leagues right now who are going to see bullpen time. I think there's a lot of guys in the bullpen right now who are going to see plenty of minor league time. Uh, yeah, their bullpen, I think, is far from being set in stone.
I agree. I don't think there's the only guys who have spots locked up, I would say, are Andreessen and Barnes at
Yes.
this point.
Yeah.
Um, and Andreessen and Barnes could also be trade pieces
Hmm.
later on down the line too. But I don't think there's a lot to expect out of this pen. Some of these guys have the chance to really rise, and Tanner Houck, like I said, if he does make the opening day team, I imagine he's going to pitch out of the pen to start.
Hmm.
But again, this is kind of more a lot of just average. There's nothing really
Yeah.
exciting to see here. But it's also not expected that the bullpen is going to be terrible, so say.
No. Yeah.
But
It's gonna be
they have a lot of
it'll
young
be a
guys.
middle of the field.
Yeah, they got a lot of young guys that are going to be pitching, and there's probably going to be a lot of there's going to be a good amount of pitchers that are going to see time in and out,
Hmm.
from minors to the majors. But this is a good time for guys to prove themselves too. Usually in these kind of retooling years and restructuring years, this is a good time for these players with high ceilings and potential to prove themselves and prove why they belong on the team,
Hmm.
and put the front office on notice. So I think this is a good year for the Red Sox to for these young guys to show what they're capable of and make it difficult for the front office to move some of these guys around, or
Yeah,
even for the veteran guys that they have, make it difficult to keep those guys as well.
absolutely.
Because I think with Jeter Downs coming up, you've got to assume that Xander Bogaerts is probably going to be on the market at
Yeah.
some point, whether it's they lose him to free agency or whether they trade him before he becomes a free agent. Kike Hernandez as well uh, is going to be on the block. JD Martinez, my Andrew Benintendi, most certainly is probably going to be on the block too.
Hmm.
Um, and I wouldn't really say there's anything to be disappointed with this group of guys the Red Sox have right now, because they did get this is a good chunk of this team was on the 2018 world title team.
Yeah.
So it's not like, the Red Sox have a ton to lose, because they do have a bright future ahead of them. And these guys, most of the core that's here, have gotten the Red Sox the ring that they were looking for.
Yeah.
And if they did have to move on from these guys, I mean, there's nothing for the fan base to be disappointed in. It's one of those times that the team needs to look to the future, and they need to bring in the next set of guys to
Hmm.
get them that title. Because since 2000, Boston's won four World Series.
Yeah.
They have the most World Series wins of the century. Um, and they want to keep adding to that, because they went through 86 years of mediocrity where they didn't win one, and now they've won four
Yeah.
in 18 years. So they want to keep that. They want to keep that going, and the way to keep that going is to consistently improve the farm system, bring the guys up through their system to get them to that next level, get them a fifth World Series ring.
Yep.
2, 3, 4 years from now, who knows how long it's going to take for them.
Yeah. The Red Sox have always seemed to be like they always go through a couple down years in between their World Series runs. Like after they won it in 2007, they won a couple years before they were really a threat again, and then they won it in 2013, and then I believe they finished dead last the very next season, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have their numbers
Yeah,
in front of me, but they were very bad for the next 2 years, and then suddenly they reappeared, won it again in 2018, and they've been they weren't terrible in 2019, but they were terrible this past season. They figured to be, I'd say, less than ideal this year. To kind of try to keep it PC. They'll be less than ideal this season, but sure enough, they'll be back. The Red Sox are always back. They always do come back. So I
yeah.
think
There's
this
no
this is just one of their down periods again.
Yeah, there's no reason to think that this is gonna be. They're not gonna be consistently this bad. They're just, again, they're going through a retool year, and
Hmm.
um, the Red Sox fans should feel some encouragement with that, because they have consistently gotten to the World Series. Over the last 18 years, they've consistently been there. They've consistently competed, even through some of those down years versus other teams who go through these down years, but they can't really secure a championship when
Hmm.
they have the pieces to win one. So I know Red Sox fans, take it as you will, but I think this is a year to look for the future. I think there will be some excitement as the year goes on, especially if Jeter Downs makes the team. Um, I think there will be some excitement along the way, um, and then maybe 2022 will look to be a little better for them. But again, the AL East is just so competitive right now.
Yeah.
This is a good time for the Red Sox to not necessarily punt the season away, but use this year as a year to experiment with what they have
Yep.
as far as the farm system goes, and then maybe even seeing as far as trades can go, who they might be able to move around and potentially pick up some other top prospects from other teams to speed up this retooling process. Because I don't think this is a rebuild by any means.
No.
This is just more. This is more the team is trying to get prepared for the immediate next couple of seasons so that then they can get back to winning ways again.
Yeah, yeah, that's you hit the nail right on the head. That seems to be how they always do it. Is they'll retool, they'll get rid of a couple of the more expensive guys they have, and then they'll sign a couple good contracts, a couple good team friendly deals with guys who end up being super contributors for them. And it seems that they hit on more prospects than they don't. So you can rest assured that Jeter Downs will probably play a big role for them. Maybe not, maybe not this season, but I'd say it next year. At the very least, he should be playing a big role, and they should be back to the playoffs in no time.
I think on paper, I'll say this team is capable of at least 75 wins.
Yeah,
I think 75 is doable for them. Over under you can pick, but I think 75 wins seems to be a good start at least for this team going into 2021.
yeah, yeah. I'd say 75 is probably. I'd say 70 is their floor. I would go so high as 85 for their ceiling. Um,
Okay.
I think if they can get Jackie Bradley Jr. back, that shores up their team quite a bit. Maybe they don't have to rely so much on Hunter Renfro. They can kind of move guys around. That could be big deal for them, just to get someone who's been there for a while and been there through the good times. If they can get someone like that back, like JBJ, I see them getting as high as 82, 85 wins. Without JBJ, probably much lower, probably 80 is the ceiling I would go for them. But any way you look at it, at least the Yankees and the Rays are going to win 90 games. The Blue Jays figure to be very, very close, if not over 90 wins. So, I mean, to finish fourth place in a division um, probably means a little less if you're the Red Sox, mainly due to the fact that the three teams ahead of you are so damn good. They could probably get away with finishing fourth and not feeling, incredibly bad about it.
No, I think a fourth place finish be would be a win in the front office's eyes, considering what they
Mm-hmm.
have as a team right now. And if they were to bring back JD or JBJ, I think it goes to show kind of what the team is more focused on a hitting perspective, because we have Hunter Renfroe penciled in as the right fielder right now.
Mm-hmm.
But if they were to bring back JBJ, I think Renfroe would be the odd man out.
Yeah.
They may platoon him and Verdugo together. Renfroe would get the start against lefties, Verdugo against righties,
Mm-hmm.
but it still would kind of it put more into perspective what the Red Sox are focused on from a hitting approach if
Yeah.
they were to bring back JBJ. And I know JBJ's been consistent or inconsistent with the bat, but he can
Mm-hmm.
provide pop and he can hit for a decent 250 average. So it's not, and besides, he's got a better glove than anything. Um,
Yeah.
which I think if they were to bring him back, it would be to improve the outfield defense more so than to improve the offense.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree there. He's never really been a big hitting guy. He's known for some clutch hits and some timely hitting, but yeah, he's never been known to be like a big home run guy. He's never really been known to be a big average guy. He's always been he's been useful, relatively useful.
Exactly. Well, that's our breakdown of the Red Sox. Again, if you're a fan of the team or if you know anyone, close friends, relatives, uh, that cashier at your favorite coffee shop, anyone you can think of who might be interested to hear just about the Red Sox or even just want to hear some baseball talk, please share this podcast with anyone you can think of. We're going to be doing this all week. We'll be doing the AL East the rest of the week. Tomorrow, we're going to cover the Baltimore Orioles. And then from there, we'll keep doing division by division until spring training gets underway, which we still don't have an official start date for spring training, but I did hear there was I don't remember who it was on Twitter. It was someone with a blue check mark. So I think there is some credibility to this, but it sounds like pitchers and catchers are going to be reporting around Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
So that is encouraging news to look at, and if that's the case, I think it's safe to assume that spring training will begin around the last week of February, first week of March. So hopefully that is the case, but we're going to be doing these breakdowns for the rest of the week as well as all of February and into the
Mm-hmm.
first week of March. So be on the lookout for that. Um, we can post a schedule up on Twitter, so then if you're looking for your team specifically, you know what day we're actually going to cover that if you so choose. If not, just we hope that you'll keep listening to us, and we hope that you'll keep giving us the support, because like you said, we want to make this a more consistent and maybe a full-time thing even, and the
Mm-hmm.
more support we get, it makes it a lot easier for us to be able to do that.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. We're planning to do what, AL East and then NL East and kind of go that path, or are we doing
Yeah,
all AL? Yeah.
we're gonna alternate between both leagues.
So if you're looking for, an NL West team, you'll be at the very end. AL East team, you'll be at the very end. If you're looking for, if you're interested in tuning in to hear about, say the Marlins, that'll be next week. So, kind of alternate between the leagues. So look forward to that.
And be sure to give us insight as well if there's anything that we should know about your team going in, because we're not perfect people. We're gonna miss things as much
Mm-hmm.
as we try to follow. We don't always know everything. It's just really hard. It's not the easiest to follow every single team out there, especially over the course of an off season and
Yeah.
162 game season. We're gonna overlook some stuff unintentionally, but we do our best to make sure we get everything and make sure that we have all the numbers, all the insight, all the rumors, and all the prospects as well. So be sure to let us know on that end as well if there is anything we should know going into the podcast before we record. We'd love to hear your thoughts, your insights, because you guys are just as important to us as the information is that we research and relay back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree 100%. I look forward to, if there's any information you guys might have about your team that, you may not hear us talk about, or, there's a prospect, you're hoping to see and you want us to cover that prospect, by all means, feel free to let us know.
Yeah, so with that said, tomorrow, Baltimore Orioles, we'll be covering them. We'll be doing a breakdown of their 2020 season as well as what to look forward to in 2021. With that said, follow us on our social media as well as our YouTube channel, Dugout Talk. Facebook page is Dugout Talk, and our Twitter handle at Dugout Talk 1. With that said, I'm Stephen Gossman,
I'm the one and only Cameron Lingle.
and we will see you tomorrow.
See you guys.